just want to thank you very much for taking the time to have a conversation today, Pavel. Um,
No
I
problem.
was in getting ready for this. One of the things that I do is I look at, I go back through an individual's discography,
Mhm.
and it took 4 days to go through yours. No, what,
That's quite
what,
some stuff. Yeah.
I'm blown away by just the sheer number of albums. You actually, I first heard you on the Necropolis album.
Mhm.
Um,
That was a
by
while back.
Vader. And at the time, I didn't realize that it was you. And then you're an Antigama,
Yeah.
and of course, Hate. You're a member of. You've toured Batushka. You were on their most recent release. You've toured with innumerable bands. So you are, I think, the dictionary definition of a working drummer. Um, it's quite impressive. So what I'd like to do first is just kind of find out uh, where you were when COVID kind of descended upon us. I know that it's had a big influence. You guys were either on a tour or you had just been on a. So just
Yeah.
I'm going to turn the floor, but just talk about kind of how things were when the shit hit the fan.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, we were halfway through the tour at the moment. I mean, we got the first info that stuff is getting canceled or there is a risk of losing a couple of shows. I would say maybe a little bit less than a week into the tour. So it took a while, actually, for us to real. I mean, we didn't even realize how serious it is until the very last second because the situation was changing so fast that it was impossible to like predict what's going to happen next. At first, we thought, of course, the first thing was Italy, right? So that's when we heard that there is a risk of losing the Italian shows. But the first half of the tour went pretty smooth. I mean, all the shows we did in Scandinavia, because that was a tour with Hate Belphegor, uh,
Suffocation?
Suffocation, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was this one. I was actually playing with Belphegor on that one.
Ah, wow.
Yeah, so um, and we just kept getting info from first it was from just fans, that stuff is getting pretty serious because the promoters didn't really tell us much. Everyone, even until pretty much the very last minute before the Italian shows were supposed to happen, we got the news from promoters that everything's fine, but
Wow.
that was at that time we got emails and like messages on Facebook and Instagram from people from those areas that there's no way it's going to happen because they're basically locking down the whole city. That was at that moment, you know. So it was about Milan and about that was Venice. Yeah.
Right.
So and actually those two places were pretty much the epicenters at the time. Those areas.
Absolutely.
Those were the places we were supposed to do, and we got people kept writing us that they're basically shutting down the cities. We had one makeup show for Venice, and that was in Slovenia, and there were actually some people from Italy that I met that came especially for that show.
Huh.
And I kept in touch with one of the guys, and he wrote me later that the day after he came back from that show, the borders were shut, so things were changing drastically. So we managed to do pretty much half of the tour without much problems, and then but we noticed that all the places that we went to, that was Romania, that was because first we went to the Balkans and after Scandinavia, so all those places pretty much after we left them, they got shut down.
Yeah.
The show we did in Vienna the next day, because we left Vienna pretty much a few hours after the show, and that's the interesting part because we were supposed to
Hmm.
stay overnight, but we couldn't find a place with power for the bus, so we decided to go.
Hmm.
And apparently, the city got shut down just as we left, pretty much a few hours later. Ours was pretty much one of the last shows that happened there. So we left the Vienna area, and Austria in general, and pretty much right after that, they shut down the country.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there is a chance that if we would, remain there, parked in the morning, we probably wouldn't leave the country anymore,
Wow.
something like that, or or we
It
have
would
some
have been
serious
hell. It would have been
problems.
hell. Wow. So
Yeah. So
so did you make it back? You're in Poland right now, correct?
yeah, I'm at
So
home.
you made it back. What is the situation in Poland like in terms of different countries are calling it different things, but lockdown, quarantine, isolation. What's it like in your area right now?
Right now, uh, it's become a little less strict, actually. Um, but the restrictions were being introduced pretty rapidly. So by the time we came back, because the last show we were supposed to do, by the time we knew that everything's getting shut down, we're not doing the second half of the tour because all Spain and Portugal was already locked up, and we were supposed to do a show in Switzerland. That was on the 13th of March, yeah, something like that. That show, we set up the stage, but we never did the show because in the meantime there was the press conference from the government that they basically introduced a ban on all live events.
Yeah.
And that was like with immediate effect, right? So the guys told us that we cannot do the show. So we just basically packed up. We came back the next morning, and in the meantime, stuff was getting more serious. So we barely made it before they closed the borders. Actually, 1 hour. We made it by 1 hour to cross the border.
You have a novel here, I think, that you got to take these notes down and turn it into a.
That's something
really great. This is incredible.
That's like you could make a movie from that, I guess, because it was getting crazier and crazier by every hour. So, but yeah, we made it back. It was tight, but we did it. We came back home, and then I stayed in isolation from the rest of my family for like 2 weeks. Just I didn't have to do it, but I thought that it's a smart thing to do, just to be sure that everything's fine. And in the meantime, everything got shut down. So all schools, all shops, supermarkets, shopping centers, everything. Only the most essential stuff was still open. And later, it was this law passed that there could be only 5 gatherings up to 5 people.
Yeah.
2-meter distance and so on. I guess it's everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And you couldn't leave home unless it was like a really serious need, like
food or medication, something like that. Yeah.
To the point where like people under the age of 18 couldn't leave home without an adult, for instance. And you couldn't go into parks. You couldn't go out for recreation of any sort, because the fees, like the ticket you could get for that was like really high, like insanely high.
Wow.
I'm speaking about like $2,000-$3,000 at least.
Damn.
Something like that. So
yeah.
But now it's getting more. I mean, they just allowed more people in supermarkets, because it was supposed to be only 3 people per register. And
wow.
If a shop had like 3 registers, you could have 9 people at the same time. So there were like huge lines outside and crazy,
Yeah, they're doing that a lot here. Each state is the music industry and bands have been hit really hard by this. One of the main revenue streams for bands now is shows. So I know that a lot of folks are trying to figure out different ways to get by right now. Some folks are doing merch. Is there anything that you're doing just to try to make sure that you're getting by in this really fucking weird time that we're going through?
Yeah, I'm basically I started doing online drum lessons myself.
Very cool.
I was doing that before. I mean, I was doing like stationary lessons for years already, but and I was actually thinking about doing the online thing as well, but of course there was not enough time. I was busy. We had tours all the time. My schedule was totally crazy the last couple of years, so I just was like, okay, I'm gonna do it one day. Well, they just came. So I got all the gear set up. I started doing that.
That is super cool. So what do folks do? Do they just DM you through one of your social media or something and try to set it up that way?
We sent out like some little advertisement about it on my Facebook page and my Instagram, and everyone can contact me through that or my email.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'll make sure to put a link in the comments of this interview, so if folks are interested, they can just kind of click on that and hook up with you directly.
Cool.
This to me is a perfect bridge over to some of the broader issues about music that I wanted to touch on with you. I'm fascinated by just the range of fucking bands that you've played in. Right.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'd be wondering if you would talk about from your individual perspective, just kind of comparing the creative processes of the different bands. And you don't have to do all of them. Maybe compare like Antigama and Hate, or I'm also fascinated to know what it was like to join Vader when you were how old? This was 2009.
That was actually 2008.
Okay.
And I was 21 at the time.
Wow. Yeah.
If I'm doing the maths right, I was either 21 or 22, because that was late August 2008.
Very cool. So I'd love to just know what that's quite a journey, my man. And you've been a part of some albums that, at least for me, are kind of part of the soundtrack to my life. So I'm just interested to know what that journey has been like for you, and maybe just start by comparing those creative processes and what it's been like.
I can start from the very beginning, actually. I mean, I'm not going to go through all of the bands because that's pretty much impossible. Once I tried to make something like a list, just out of curiosity, of all the bands that I've worked with, one way or another. Either I was like a session recording or just like a fill-in gig or whatever, any kind of. So the number is close to 100. Wow. Including all the little tiny bands up to all the biggest whatever.
Hang on. What was your first band? What was the first band ever?
The very first band was called Last Whisper, actually.
Okay.
That's a very funny story. I mean, the best part is that I didn't start having one band. I started having two at the same time. So, I mean, okay.
Pretty much your career has been, you set that foundation early.
It was like a garage band, pretty much. We were all just starting to learn to play, actually, But the story is that I was playing drums for like 3-4 months at the time. So I didn't know anything, but none of us did. We just wanted to play. That's it. And the idea was to play like thrash, heavy thrash kind of thing, because that was basically what we could do, And we were trying to find a rehearsal space in my town back in the day. So and we got some info that there is something available in the local house of culture or whatever, So it was like you didn't have to pay for it. You just had to go through a certain exam. I wouldn't call it like that. It was just there was a guy who was taking care of it,
Mm-hmm.
and you as a band had to go and play one or two songs, and he
Ah.
listened to it and see if if those people that are applying are actually serious on what they do or no, just to eliminate, or I mean serious in a way that you actually want to use that space to make music or
Very
develop your skills, whatever. So it's not a bunch of drunks, just you know what I mean,
Yes.
something like that. And yeah, and we passed, and there was another band applying as well, and they didn't have a drummer. I met them that very day. The band's name was Psychophobia, and because the guy who was supposed to play with them, as far as I remember, because that was ages ago, he kind of quit on the day of the audition, and they really wanted to get that spot. We were talking about 1 day a week, 4 hours. You would get that one spot, which you could use. And they asked me if I could help them out, and I had to learn 2 songs, like one cover and one of their songs, like very easy stuff. That was like heavy metal, like Iron Maiden kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very simple. So I basically sat in the car and learned those 2 songs on the spot and played it with them without ever. I didn't even know them before, actually. And that's how
Did you pass?
Yeah.
Of course you did. Of course.
That's how I mean, I still probably have some recordings. You can find this band online. I don't know if there's the recording I did with them, because that's ancient stuff. We were talking about 2003 or something. But yeah, that's how it happened. So I already started having 2 bands.
That's incredible.
From band to band, I was like a very natural process, because I got to know some people while playing in Last Whisper that happened to play or know people who were playing in a band called Soul Snatcher. That was my first death metal band. And they were looking for a drummer. I didn't know shit about blast beats at the time. I didn't know such thing existed, actually. So they asked me if I want to help them out. The band was just doing rehearsals. There were no plans for any shows or anything like that. And we didn't actually play a single show until like 2 years later anyway. So I started playing with those guys as well. So I had 3 bands at a certain time, because Psychophobia was just for like a year and a bit. Then they went in their own direction. And Soul Snatcher was the first kind of serious band, let's say. So the band that we did something with. There's actually some stuff on the internet. If you want, I can make a little list of stuff later for you.
Yeah, send that, and then I can put it in the link. That would be awesome.
For stuff that some people might be curious and not like because you cannot. It's not so easy to find all this old stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this band was like a mix between, I don't know, Morbid Angel, Kurtopsy, Deeds of Flesh, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Guts. That was like really twisted old school American style death metal.
Yes.
So that was a huge jump for me. I actually was learning to play blast beats playing that stuff.
Wow.
Back in the days. So that band was playing rehearsals in the same place that the band Davos was playing.
Okay.
That's a death metal band from Poland, from Lublin, from the town we were all from originally. And Davos, they had a drummer that everyone was like talking a lot about in the area, because he was like one of the first guys to do like super fast blast beats. We were talking about 280, and he was playing that kind of stuff in like 93, 94 already. Oh. No one knew anything about it at the time, and so he got a lot of session work in like local bands or recordings, whatever that was happening at the time. And he kind of stayed for a couple of our rehearsals, and we became friends because we were sharing rehearsal space. And he had a lot of jobs, so he got an offer from Hellborn. That's like a pretty old band with the original Behemoth lineup. two members from Behemoth, and they asked him if he could do a tour because their drummer at the time kind of quit. And he said that he's busy because he's got shows with Squash Bowels at the time and Parasite and everything. But he knows this guy that plays, he was talking about me.
Wow.
So the guys, I was just sitting at my computer one of those evenings, and the guys just called me. He gave them my number, and I was like, I don't know, I was 2006. So we're talking 2 years before Vader.
Yeah.
And they asked me if I could record an audition. So I had my drums in my room basically. So I just had one mic hanging from the lamp, just like like that. And I just played one of their songs, and they were expecting me to send it back within a week. I sent it back within like 1 hour or something, because I was so hyped up, And of course, I thought that I had no chances because, it's not good enough. But they immediately called me back, and I, started going to rehearsals. That's where I met, Les and Baal and all the guys, like all Behemoth members and everything.
Oh.
Then I went on my first ever tour with those guys. That was a Polish tour. And on that tour, there was Herm. So the band that Bart is in. Was in at the time. That was his band. Hellborn, Blinded. So that had Havok, the old guitar player from Behemoth, and Massmord. That was the black metal band, which had members of Cryonics. So yeah, everything starts.
Yeah, this is great.
Right.
I'm just my jaws like. Yeah, this is crazy.
Coincidence. I got to know all these people on that tour. And then a year later, after that, I got a phone call from the guys from Cryonics, because since we met on that tour, kept in touch. That after the Decapitated accident, which they were a part of as well, their drummer, Cryonics is drummer, so we're talking about Maciek from Mgła, because that's the same guy actually. He broke his jaw in the accident, in the car accident. And he couldn't play for an extended period of time. So they asked me if I will help them out. I went on a tour. That's where I met Heinrich, so the guy who was playing in Vesania on bass, and then Rootwater, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
And later he called me to play with Rootwater. We're talking about 2007 already. And not long after, I got a call from Mariusz Kmiołek, so Vader's manager.
Yeah.
So it was all a link of people I got to know while doing those shows. So probably, all those puzzles. If I didn't go on this tour or meet this person, this wouldn't happen, and so on. So
like a long chain of dominoes, and everyone had the fall.
When I analyze it now, every single situation I ended up in was a result of some people or I met before, or because I didn't ever apply to any of the bands myself. I never reached out to any of the bands or whatever. It was always the other way around for some reason. And that's the funny thing when I analyze it now. So Vader, that started in 2008. I got a phone call to come to the audition. At first, I wasn't sure if I want to do it because I was like, it's too big,
Yeah.
I took the risk. I learned 4 songs. It was, as far as I remember, it was Carnal, Silent Empire, Dark Age, and Blood of Kingu.
Okay.
The way it was done is I had to come to Warsaw, and at a studio, that's when I got to know Janos, the guy who actually, that's the funny part right now, his studio is just underneath my rehearsal space, and we did a ton of recordings together already, but that's when I kind of got to know the guy, because his studio was rented for the audition. So I brought my kit, I just set up my kit, and Peter was there, Mariusz was there, and Peter was there with Mario just sitting in the back, and he and a couple other drummers were supposed to play those 4 songs just like that. No guitars, nothing. Just drums,
Wow.
solo drums, no triggers, no miking, nothing. Just,
No click track, nothing.
no. Just you just sit and play, and Peter's there like, listening to basically just saute drums,
Wow.
So that's how it looked. So it also was like a memory thing because you had to know the arrangements by heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think they said they will call us, and I got the phone call still that day, a few hours later,
Wow.
To the team. So that's how it started.
In that brief period, those couple of hours, did you think, man, I fucking nailed that?
I wasn't.
Were you like, I don't know?
I was actually convinced that, it was good to try, but now time to get back to reality.
Wow.
I was 100% sure that I'm not gonna get it because the other guys are great,
Yeah.
So yeah, and but yeah, that was a game changer. That was when things became serious, actually.
Yeah.
When I realized that, it seems that that's what I'm gonna be doing, because I always wanted to do that, but I never kind of believed that I can actually do it, like, professionally.
Mm-hmm.
That was something which I thought is reserved to only, I don't know, to the ones that are out there already, right? So,
What was it like transitioning at that age into a band that had already been around for 2 decades at least at that point by the time, right? Roughly that you joined. What was that like just for you to try to? I can still picture Peter in your story sitting back there like this.
Yeah, Peter was twice my age, actually.
Yeah, what was that like for you? Where kind of try to fit in. Pretty much just, yes, I will do it.
Yeah, I was just, I had no idea what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
I only got a list of songs I was supposed to learn, which was like around 30. And I think it was like, I don't remember exactly, like maybe 3 weeks or a month of time to do it. And 1 rehearsal, and then we go on tour.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was like, I have no idea how to handle it, so I'm just gonna, learn the songs, prepare as good as I can, and I don't know, just go. Let's see what happens. So yeah, and that was
at that point, so that's obviously for the tour. You hadn't recorded Necropolis yet.
Yeah.
In your mind, was there a guarantee, not a guarantee, but did you think you would be kind of staying with Vader after that tour? Was there an agreement, or in some ways, go ahead.
I wasn't really sure, but
yeah,
that's what we spoke of. It was like welcome to the team, basically. It was not like we need a fill-in guy. It was like we need a drummer,
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, we started talking about the album already on the tour. I did this tour. Then there was one more in January 2009, because the first tour was late 2008 already. Then January 2009, that was Winterfest tour around Europe with Deicide, with Samael, and with some other bands as well. Amenta from Australia, I remember.
Wow.
6 bands on the bill. It was like
wow.
So after those 2 tours, we kind of started the whole recording process. So yeah, that was already something different because Vader's writing style is also something pretty original, I would say. Basically, I don't know exactly how it is. Was the system right now, but back in the days it was like Peter basically writes all the material by himself, and he pretty much does that after the drums are already recorded to a big extent. Yeah, I mean he's recording I kind of get some guidelines. He's got ideas for songs in his head, and then he tells you, okay, so we need like 4 bars of blast, then let's do, like a skank beat, then do some accents and this and that. He's got like a picture of a song which doesn't exist in his head, and he needs the rhythmic part of that, and then he sits and like creates the riffs from what he's got in his head.
So you're really laying down with him as in some ways kind of the architect.
Yeah.
You're laying down the foundation of what will be the song.
Yeah, pretty much.
That is so cool.
Yeah, that's actually, I was like, wow, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, that's how it works, pretty much.
So,
and that's used to work at least.
So by the time Morbid Reich, that album comes around in 2011, was the writing process again the same? You would approach.
So there were ideas for a few songs were done by Spider, and but yeah, the whole process was kind of similar in a way, but I already was more prepared for that as well mentally. I knew I had some ideas of my own by that time already. Yeah, Welcome to the Morbid Reich was kind of the same, but also different because I grew, mentally as well, and had more ideas, and we all knew each other better at the time.
Your confidence must have been growing just as a professional at that point to a certain degree.
Yeah. At least that's what I thought at the time, probably.
It's right around this time after that release that you hook up with Antigama, am I correct? Right around this time?
Yeah, pretty much. It happened kind of, simultaneously, because that was shortly before recording that album. I moved to Warsaw. Okay. And I was naturally looking for rehearsal space. Just kind of. I knew some people already, but I was new in town basically. So I used some contacts I had, and I ended up in the rehearsal space with all my gear, just practicing on my own, just next door to Antigama at the time. And they already were having some trouble with their drummer. I mean, like they weren't really getting along very well. Mm-hmm. And one of those days, just I was there every day, just practicing, playing songs and everything, and we met each other.
So through the wall, they're hearing you kick ass on the drums.
We met on the corridor, like when I went out to take a break. They were out there like smoking as well and like drinking coffee, whatnot. We would just meet there, all of us.
Right.
And one of those days, when I was coming in the morning, Sebastian, so the guitar player, the founding member, he was there, just go, hey, what's up? I want to ask you one thing. What would you think? Would you like to try and we jam something? Just like that. And I was like, yeah, why not? Let's try it, because I didn't have a band basically. I was just playing by myself. He just took his guitar stack, just rolled it over to my to the next room basically, set himself up, like, okay, let's play something, right? I think 40 minutes later we came out to have a smoke, and we already had one song done, just like that. And
would that song end up showing up on Meteor, or?
It was on Stop the Chaos. It's actually the first song he can spec to. That's cool. What we wrote in 40 minutes when we first jammed together. Yeah.
Oh.
Of course, in like a rough version, but that was it. I actually still have, I think I still have like some, because we recorded it on like some tape machine or something like that. Whatever
like a 4-track or something like that.
I still have it. Like the very first jam, first version,
Yes.
So, and I was like, yeah, he didn't even need to ask me anything at that point, and we're like, okay, we're doing it, it's working.
Yeah, and that for you was that a bit? I mean, obviously there's more of a grind element going on in that band, so just the aggression, just that must have been really fun, I would think, from
Yeah,
your perspective
for
as a
me,
drummer.
that was like a big eye opener, this band. I mean, I had to really rethink or kind of relearn playing drums in a way. I mean, because I was really sticking to the metal way of playing drums for years, and I was what he called, I was like really just like square, like
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. And he was like, no, do more groove, like just let it go. I was like, but how? And it was just don't think about it, just do it. But you don't play like that. What do you mean you don't play like that? And he opened my head a lot, actually. So it
yeah,
took me a while to actually start being more flexible and more open and trying to introduce stuff that doesn't really fit So in the end, I think I combined the metal style which I came from, and his style because Antigama played a bit different before I joined. They were very how to say that, twisted, like very uh, unintelligible at times.
chaotic,
Chaos.
very. Yeah, that's the way I would describe their
Yeah,
early
exactly.
stuff.
And we kind of met in the middle with my like really,
Kind of precision versus chaos.
yeah. So we kind of blended those two elements, and I guess that's what made the new sound really, the way it is now. So
And I think in some ways, you see that joining of precision and chaos. I'm going to build a bridge over here to Hate,
mhm.
because I think with Hate, and this is a listener talking to the creator, so I could be way the fuck off. But you were able to harness the precision that you developed with Vader,
Mhm.
and also the kind of chaos that you learned playing with Antigama, and you brought the best of both worlds into Hate. So I'd be interested if you would talk a little bit about, you started with Crusade Zero, I think, in
Yeah,
2015.
exactly.
Uh,
Because I
so I mean,
basically joined the band in very late 2013, and all through 2014 we were playing shows and kind of writing. Because I think it came out 2015, right?
Crusade Zero,
Yeah.
yes,
But
yeah,
we actually recorded it in 2014, as far as I remember.
okay,
So, but the story with this album is kind of complicated because Adam actually started writing that before I started playing with him, and so a lot of the songs and ideas were already done. So this album was really because to be honest, I'm not really super satisfied with this album.
hmm.
I think we could have done it way better if we had more time to just jam more, and because we actually started finding the formula to write stuff on the next one, on Tremendum,
Yes,
and we kind of perfected it only recently on the last one.
which and I'm just going to put this out there. If there's anybody who's watching this video who hasn't listened to Auric Gates of, is it Velas? Okay, that to me was the best death slash black, whatever the fuck subgenre you want to use. That to me was my favorite album of 2019. I thought that was incredible. So I just want to say thank you for helping make that, because it kicked ass. And I'll turn the floor back over to you. You were talking about kind of developing that style
Yeah,
through your.
it took some time. It took some, a couple of let's say failed attempts, because we actually with Crusade Zero, we didn't really have a clear vision of what we want to do. We were kind of a little bit blindfolded, right? We were like, okay, this works, but we wasn't really sure. In the end, after I listened to the album, I was like, there's some good moments there, but there's a lot of stuff that could have been done differently. Maybe, there's too many intros, the songs are too long, and so on and so on. That's some stuff we kind of realized afterwards, right? So then we tried to eliminate those mistakes doing Tremendum.
Mm-hmm.
But then we did some different ones. It was closer to what we wanted to achieve, but it was still not there. And actually, I think that Our Gates of Velas is still not 100%, what we could potentially do. And right now we are actually writing new stuff.
Wow.
Ready? Yeah. We have two songs pretty much done, and then a couple more, let's say some rough ideas here and there. So, yeah, that's basically.
That's awesome to hear. That's awesome.
But yeah, like always, it takes time. We also, Adam has very specific style of writing, we basically jam. All the at least the last two albums we did 100% on like rehearsing, jamming.
Very cool.
He didn't really work at home, just doing riffs and using a drum machine to create his ideas of beats or whatnot. We were
built them up together
doing the organic way, the old school.
Very cool.
I guess that's where the different vibe comes from, because there's certain ideas which you can never write at home. They just pop up like when you jam. That's it. It's the only way. And it takes a lot of time, actually, because those songs, both those albums took around 2 years each to make. On and off, of course, because we were doing shows and all different stuff. But basically, the whole process, the writing process, took around 2 years each time. And we actually had quite a lot of songs, both finished and unfinished, that never made it to the album. Because eventually, we were like, well, that's cool, but these are better. So, nah.
So do you save some of those songs that weren't quite there and go back to them and tweak them, or?
That's what we did with Walk Through Fire. This song was supposed to originally be on Crusade Zero, but in a bit different form. It was like 2 minutes longer, had some different riffs, different beginning, but the main riff was the same. But when we were kind of choosing the songs for the album, we were like, this one doesn't really fit. Let's put it aside. And, it felt too long, and then we came back to it when we were writing Tremendum. And it was actually, we were quite far into the process already. And then we were like, why not trying to do something with this one now?
Huh.
And that's when we, kind of revised that one, cut it short, changed some riffs, just, but it was originally written for Crusade Zero, actually.
Wow, that's incredible. I love hearing the journey of different songs and how sometimes, depending on the band, I was talking to Sammy Duet from Goat Whore recently, and he talked about how some riffs just marinate for a couple of years, and then you go back to them and pick them up and look at it in a different way, maybe alter it. And it's fascinating the way songs take on a life of their own to a certain degree.
Yeah, it was like that with Hate as well. There's a lot of riffs. Like we have tons of like short fragments or even single riffs that are just there, waiting for their time, let's say. They're like, there's something in it, but we don't really know what to do with it yet. Like,
Absolutely.
Something like that.
Well, I'm looking forward to whatever the hell you guys put out next. Because
Antigama, it's actually the same. We're writing a new album right now.
Very cool.
8 songs done.
Very cool. That's you never fucking rest. Do you sleep or what? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I rest now.
It took a plague. It took a plague to get Pawel to actually take a break.
Yeah, I'm actually joking that that's my overdue vacation.
Yes.
That I couldn't find time, so Mother
Time
Nature
found you.
Time
found you. And speaking of time, this will work as a perfect question, just perfect kind of bridge to maybe the last question, okay? Just because I know we both have we have to get going here at some point.
Yeah.
And that would be if I could get you in a time machine
Mm-hmm.
and take you back to when, let's say, you were 15.
Wow.
And I could tell you that you could give yourself a single piece of advice.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to get back in the time machine and we're popping back here to the present. What would be the piece of advice you would give a young Pavel?
Keep in mind, I didn't start learning drums until I was 17. So we were talking 2 years earlier. So I would say start practicing rudiments. Because there's gonna be a time when you gonna get mad at yourself that you didn't do it. I would say, okay, that one thing that would change a lot. Definitely. Why? Because I kind of skipped that because I was learning pretty much on my own. I had some teacher at the beginning, but it was like just for a while, and then I was pretty impatient. I wanted to play stuff I wanted to play. I didn't want to focus on like rudiments, like the basic stuff that you always learn at the beginning. So that's something I'm actually using the time now to fix. I'm learning some of the basics that I never really did before.
I've noticed on Instagram, one of the things that I love about following you is you share the work behind the finished product. So I know you were working on a swivel. I'm not a fucking drummer, so I'm gonna get this wrong. But you were working on a swivel technique for a bass drum. And just the fact that you share that and you share your process, to me, shows a lot of people just like to show the finished product. They don't like to show all the fucking blood, sweat, and tears behind it.
I mean, with me, it's like it's not an easy road, and no one's always perfect, and definitely I'm not, because there's been a lot of shows and a lot of years actually that I really messed up a lot of stuff playing. It's not like I did this perfect, and no. I never did actually. Every time there's always something not really great. There's a lot of drummers out there who are way better technically. Younger drummers and then so on. And I always felt that I need to kind of improve all this, because it doesn't feel fair to the fans, and I don't feel good myself not doing stuff the way I'm supposed to 100%.
Yeah,
because it happens. I mean, the stuff I'm playing is pretty difficult. And I've been always playing very physically, actually, just kind of making up for the unperfect technique, let's say, just trying to keep up physically with that. And
does that start to take a toll on your body if your technique isn't down?
It really does. I mean, I'm not 20 anymore. I'm not even 30 anymore. So I decided to finally, use the time. I started doing that last year with feet and hands, taking lessons actually, and just fixing all this stuff. It's a long process. It's gonna take some time, but I know it's worth it, because in the end I will be able to do way more, I think.
Yeah.
Be more happy with the results, because I'm always unsatisfied actually, and deliver better. Yeah, I hope.
Absolutely.
It's gonna take time.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to me, and to share your journey. Really,
if we were supposed to talk in detail about all this, it would take many hours, because
absolutely. You have, I would really encourage you at some point. I mean, you're going to have a hell of a book when you're older, and you're like, fuck this, I can't go on tour anymore. You start going through, hopefully you take take notes or journal or something, because you got a book in you, I can tell, my friend. Maybe 2 volumes, perhaps. I'm not sure.
Might be.
I think you also have some incredible stories, but maybe some crazy ass stuff that's gone on too. But we could save that for a different interview.